Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
When I was 18, I was dating my then girlfriend at that time, who had really strict parents, which often resulted in me traveling to her place every weekend so we can meet up and be together. Her place is around 30 to 50 minutes to get to through public transportation, as I live in the city and the subways can have pretty bad delays randomly. This one particular day was no different. I go to her place, we hang out, and then it's time for me to make it home. I also have particularly strict parents that don't let me out past a certain time, so I have to rush back home. When I had arrived to the train station, I realized that I forgot my Metro card, and I just decided to hop the turnstile as I'm racing to get back home. Upon doing so, I immediately locked eyes with this stranger just on the other side of the gate. This stranger is a man that seemed to be in his 30s to 40s, with darker complexion and a beaten white tank top and disheveled grayish hair. I seemed to have caught his attention while he was in the middle of yelling, which caused him to stop. I didn't think much of it as I have my headphones on and I'm a person that usually keeps to myself, so I continue further down the platform. I walked just a tiny bit forward and I realized that the man was possibly following me. I thought that I could just be paranoid, so I continued to walk down the platform until I stopped next to a pillar, to which the man stopped as well. He was just pacing behind me back and forth talking to himself. At that point, I realized that I'm being followed by someone that doesn't seem well, and I'm on an empty platform with around 2 to 4 people and isolated from the said other passengers. I was pretty close to the edge given how I'm standing next to the platform, and I didn't know what to do. The trains were delayed, and if I continued to walk down the platform, I would have hit the dead end. I chose to FaceTime with my brother after texting him the situation in real time, and I held my phone in front of me so that he can see behind me without me checking, while he updated me in my earbuds. According to him, the man was staring at me and then pacing back and forth in an erratic manner, with his behavior growing increasingly aggressive by the second. At this point, I was shaking. Despite living in the city, I don't experience much of anything in this caliber, maybe for a crazy homeless guy once or twice. I continued to walk down the platform while on FaceTime as the man continued to follow me before I gave up and I settled behind a pillar once again. I was frantically checking the train times at this point, hoping that it would just arrive so that I can get out of this situation while the man continued to yell. And after around 10 more minutes, the train finally pulled up to the station at a very slow pace. And as the train stopped at the platform, the man gave up and walked away as I walked further down the platform to ensure that I'm not in the same cart as him. I was annoyed at how slow the train was driving, but thinking back on it now, it was a good thing. According to my brother, he was waiting for the train to come so he can push me down into the tracks and seemingly gave up after seeing just how slow the train was approaching. I believe he wanted to try and rob me if anything, so to the man that tried to push me onto the tracks, let's not ever meet again. English is not my first language, so there may be mistakes. I'm a 25-year-old female, and this happened maybe 8 to 9 years ago. I was around 16 to 17 years old then. I'm from a small village, and I went to school in the nearest big city, which was about 45 kilometers away. Because public transportation was so bad, like to get home, I had to change buses twice, and if I missed the last transfer and my parents weren't home, I had no way to get home unless they came for me. Or I had to walk 4 kilometers. So because of this, I lived in a dormitory during the week in the city where I studied. I stayed in the city during the week and then I went home on Fridays, then back again on Sundays. I always got off the bus at the main station when I arrived in the city at around 2 p.m. My boyfriend, who came from another town, also studied in the city and he came by train. Every Sunday, I waited for him at the station for about an hour and a half and then we went to the dormitory together. That day was no different. I was waiting for him, sitting upstairs at the station in a spot where I could see the entire ground floor from above. I had my headphones in and I was on my phone, just sitting there. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a homeless woman wandering around. She sometimes stood still and looked around, but I didn't pay much attention. There was a lot of homeless people in that area. Time passed and I was still sitting with my headphones on and my phone in hand. But then I saw the homeless woman start walking in my direction. I still didn't think much of it. When she was about a few feet away from me, I noticed that she was talking to other people who were sitting nearby, probably asking for money. A few moments later, she started walking towards me again. I saw her, but I didn't lift my head. And then she stopped in front of me. And that's when I looked up. She just stared at me. Her eyes looked like she was so high on something and she was slightly swaying. She was dirty, honestly disgusting to look at. Some green liquid was dripping from the corner of her mouth and her face was dirty. She wore a thick coat, gray pants, black boots even though it was spring, and had a black backpack on. She had short brown hair, brown eyes, and looked around 40, though she could have been younger. I saw her lips moving. She was talking to me. I took out my headphones and I gave her my attention. I'm not a rude person, and I always try to speak kindly to people. But when I removed my headphones, she was silent and she just stared at me. "What? Could you say that again?" I asked her. And then she spoke again, but I didn't understand a single word, just mumbling. She stared at me with those glassy eyes. I shook my head and I said, "Sorry, I can't understand what you're saying," I told her and I looked at her. At this point, I felt my heart beat faster. I was starting to get scared. I didn't know what she wanted from me, and something about her made me really uncomfortable. She started mumbling again, and while she mumbled, she began searching for something in her coat pocket with her right hand. I looked down at her hand to see what she was doing or what she wanted from me. At this point, I thought maybe she needed help with something. I looked back up into her eyes and waited to see what was going to happen. But then, I saw her pull her hand out of her coat and I looked down at her hand again. I saw a piece of glass in her hand. She slowly slid it up under her coat to her forearm, holding the sharp end in her palm. It was pretty big, sharp, probably around 15 centimeters or 6 inches. And that's when I realized something was very wrong. My eyes widened. I was scared. I asked her one last time, a bit more irritated now. "What do you want from me?" I knew there were people around me. It was a train station in broad daylight, so I didn't think she would actually do anything. Well, suddenly, she stepped toward me and pushed the glass toward me, toward my neck. I reacted immediately. I jumped up in time, pushed her away, and then yelled at her. "What the fuck are you doing?" She started mumbling more angrily, and I had no idea what she was saying. My whole body was shaking and I was terrified. I grabbed my travel bag quickly, all while keeping my eyes on her. She was still mumbling angrily, holding the glass shard in front of her, staring at me. "Leave me alone! Go to hell!" I shouted at her again, and as I rushed off, I saw that everyone at the station was now watching us. I ran outside the station and I saw some police officers nearby, and I felt relieved. I walked toward them, but I didn't say anything. I knew that if I told them, they would probably just tell her to leave, and that would be it. So I just stayed close to them. A few moments later, I saw the woman come outside too. She was walking in my direction, angrily looking at me. I didn't see the glass in her hand anymore. I just grabbed my bag and I walked to a different part of the station courtyard where she couldn't see me. I was trembling, scared, and in shock. I never saw her again. A bit later, my boyfriend arrived and I told him what happened. He was surprised and worried too. He told me never to wait for him at the station again, and I didn't. From that point on, I always waited for him at the dormitory. And even now, every time that I go to the station, which is rare, I get anxious and I stay alert. I still live in that city now, even after finishing school, and I'm still with my boyfriend. We live together. Just knowing what could have happened there if I hadn't reacted in time, or if I had just ignored her, it still scares me. So, to the homeless woman who might not even be alive anymore, if you are, let's not meet again. I don't know if this subreddit is the most suitable place for this post, but I don't know what to do, so I'm just hoping to vent and hope for advice. My encounters with this individual, who I will call Ben, began in November of 2024 in school. He was a friend of one of my friends, Tom, and eventually we became part of the same friend group. I have always found Ben a bit creepy, which seemed to be the school population's general view towards him. However, once we began regularly socializing, I began to feel bad for my presumptions. Well, that was until we were added to a WhatsApp group chat, and that was when things started to turn. First, it was the mindless constant images of gore that he would send involving torture victims and murdered children. I don't know if these images were real, but they made me very uncomfortable to the point that I asked him to stop, to which I was just told to take a joke and stop being a pussy. This was followed by messages where he stated that he had killed a cat along with sick fantasies involving people that I knew. I wasn't sure if Ben was just your average edgelord, which was my other friend's attitude, but something didn't seem right. One Saturday, I was alone Christmas shopping in my town when I noticed Ben standing down the road from me, just staring directly at me. I waved at him awkwardly, to which he just stared before walking casually down a side street. And for the rest of the trip, every time that I turned, Ben was standing, just staring at me at a distance. I eventually just gave up shopping and I went home pissed. I texted him about it, to which he just stated that he didn't know what I was talking about. Then in school during lunch, Ben and another friend Jack convinced me to come with him to the forest behind our school with another friend Zach. It was stupid, I know, but I was bored and I was accompanied anyway, so we started getting deeper in. And Ben was becoming weird. He was laughing and kept repeating, "Closer, closer." And eventually both me and Zach agreed that it was creepy and off-putting, and we returned. Ben seemed pissed when he and Jack returned. However, when we asked why they wanted us to go further, he responded that he wanted to set a fire and show us. After this, I distanced myself and left the group chat, though was eventually re-added. While on my hiatus from that group, Ben attacked Tom with a homemade blade in school, resulting with a wound near his wrist, and this resulted in Ben being expelled from the school. However, no legal action was taken. It's now been a month, and I was re-added to the group chat just to find that Ben has been sending graphic self-harm photos and then talking about his hatred for his family, blaming them for his misfortune. I'm worried that he genuinely gives killer vibes, but perhaps I'm just being paranoid. I often wonder about that time in the forest and in the town plaza. Anyway, thanks for reading. Should I be concerned, or am I just overreacting? I sometimes worry that Ben knows where I live, and he isn't far away. I will preface this by saying that I was raised by a killer. My grandfather and grandmother raised me, and when I was 17, my grandfather stalked, kidnapped, and murdered my grandmother because she wanted a divorce. I also married my ex-husband at 22, later to find out that his dad was a prolific pedophile, raping his sisters as young as 6 years old. Both are in prison for life. But these are men I was extremely close to, and for a while I was almost attracted to danger, and the warning signs were easily ignored and considered normal. Until I started listening to my intuition, and now I can spot these predatory type people out. They know I recognize them. It's like an unspoken thing, like when you are at a party and you and someone else see something funny but don't know each other well enough to say it out loud. So you just kind of look at each other and kind of laugh telepathically. It's only happened twice, as I don't really get out like that. And to be frank, there aren't that many people like this out there. And if they are out there, I am not adept enough at pointing them all out. But I could tell almost immediately with this man. My mom's friend is a truck driver. My mom has been taking my daughter to play with his daughter on little play dates, and they met at a church group. Come to find out later that this church group is a weird extremist version of Christianity where they believe that all white people are evil and they are the chosen ones rather than the Jews, and a whole bunch of other weird shit. It's a cult. I became uncomfortable with my mom taking my daughter to these playdates once I realized how disturbed their combined beliefs were. I didn't want to cut off the playdates cold turkey for the sake of the kids, so I started taking time off work to join them and tell my mom that he wasn't allowed around my daughter without me being there. When I first met him, he was very charming and sweet, funny, but annoyingly jolly and clearly trying hard to appear innocent and sweet. He used a soft voice to make me uncomfortable and incessantly talked about being protective to make himself seem more manly. He told me weird things like his daughter wasn't allowed to wear pants and only dresses. Then, he kept offering me drinks, one after the other, while we were hanging out with our kids. It's not a big deal, but I am not a drinker, especially not on playdates, and I made that very clear to him. While we were sitting down watching the kids, it was at the beach this time, he set up a little blanket area and told me that I could come closer. I did not know how to react other than to say that I needed to sit where I was sitting to be with the kids better. I already had been sitting on my own blanket, but he kept pushing and said that I could see them from here. Here, being basically on his lap on the blanket that he'd set up. He stared at me silently for what seemed like an hour before I scooted slightly closer to him to not make things more awkward for everyone around. I sat on the edge corner of the blanket and I tried to avoid eye contact, and I just focused on the kids, being sure not to have him or get too close. I got weird vibes, but I figured that he was obviously weird because of his culty beliefs. I just shrugged it off as him being odd. But my gut was burning for days after that first meeting. I also noticed that he spoke really badly about women, especially his kid's mom. I figured he was just a misogynistic weirdo. He went on a truck run, and when he came back, immediately wanted to get the kids together again. I told my mom that I had to be there, so we arranged the date and time where I wasn't working. We went to a paint studio for the kids, and again, the whole time he was offering me drinks. At an art studio for kids, where no drinks were served. He even ran to a bar to go get a drink and then brought it into the children's art studio. A handful of beer as he was surrounded by kids painting bluey portraits. It was bizarre. We went from the art studio to a trampoline park, and as the kids were joking around and jumping and playing, he repeatedly picked me up and threw me into the foam ball pit despite my clear discomfort and telling him that I wasn't feeling well and asking him to stop. He then pulled me down on top of him while he was laying on the trampoline, to which I got very upset and then stormed off, taking my daughter with me. At one point before that, I had gotten a friction burn on my wrist from sliding down the trampoline too fast, and then he took my wrist and grabbed it hard and then pressed down on the open sore to taunt me. I don't know if this man is just socially awkward or disturbed or what, but my body has never physically reacted so strongly to a person beside my ex-husband's father, who was a convicted pedophile. I could not sleep for days. I started smoking cigarettes again after 10 years since I quit. My thoughts were racing constantly. I called my brothers and I started telling them how odd it was, but I ended up crying at the end of our conversation out of pure fear. My stomach was shaking, and this lasted for about 2 weeks. Obviously, I can't say if he's a serial killer, but the truck driver occupation, paired with his obvious devious nature, is just not something that I wanna fuck with. Edit. Number 1. I met the dude twice, and this was like a year ago. I've banned him from our lives and preferably my mom's, but I can't control her. My kid is barely allowed around my own mother anymore, as I lost trust in her after this obviously. Stop insisting that I cut contact, as it was cut a long time ago. Thinking I'm a bad mom is up to you, but I don't care about those opinions as I know how vigilant I am and my kid's safety. I started a new job working from home just to be around her more, so my mother doesn't need to be, among other security measures that I have been taking to protect her. 2. I don't know enough details about this guy to file a report or go to CPS, and I don't plan on being around him anymore to get more details. I don't even know where he lives, and my mom refuses to give me any more details because she is suspicious of my intentions since she knows I think he's disgusting. I even tried asking for their address so that I could send a birthday invitation, and she wouldn't give it to me because they don't celebrate birthdays in their religion. This is a very odd and very unique situation, and it's not going to be easy to get police onto this man. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.